On January 5, 2024, 16,000 feet above Portland, Oregon, a piece of an airplane simply fell off. A gaping hole opened in the side of Alaska Airlines Flight 1282, ripping a boy's shirt from his body and sucking cell phones into the night sky. Miraculously, no one was killed, but that single terrifying event wasn't an accident. It was a symptom of a deep cultural rot inside America's most legendary planemaker. This is the story of how Boeing, a company that once represented the pinnacle of human engineering, became a symbol of corporate greed so profound it put profits ahead of human lives. For over a century, the name Boeing was synonymous with American excellence. They didn't just build planes, they built the modern world. It was Boeing's revolutionary 747, the majestic Queen of the Skies, that democratized air travel, connecting continents and cultures like never before. It was Boeing that built the massive first stage of the Saturn V rocket that took humanity to the moon. Their reputation was forged in precision, in safety, and in an unwavering commitment to engineering. The company was run by engineers for engineers. The factory floor in Seattle was the heart of the company, and the guiding principle was simple: build the best, safest planes in the world. They built an empire on a currency more valuable than money: trust. The trust of pilots, of airlines, and of the billions of passengers who stepped onto their planes without a second thought. But in 1997, that empire began to rot from the inside. That year, Boeing merged with its struggling rival, McDonnell Douglas. On paper, it was a corporate takeover. In reality, it was a reverse takeover of Boeing's soul. The finance-first, cost-cutting culture of McDonnell Douglas began to infect Boeing's engineering-led DNA. Former Boeing president Phil Condit famously admitted his goal was to fundamentally change the culture, and that he'd be crucified for it. In 2001, the company moved its corporate headquarters from the factory town of Seattle to Chicago, physically and metaphorically distancing the executives in suits from the engineers in hard hats. The message was clear: shareholder value, not engineering marvels, was now the top priority. The company that put a man on the moon was now being run by men who only cared about the bottom line. This fatal shift would soon have deadly consequences. The 737 is the best-selling airplane in history, the workhorse of the airline industry. To compete with a new, more fuel-efficient plane from their rival Airbus, Boeing decided not to design a new plane from scratch, but to update the existing 737 airframe one more time. They fitted it with larger, more efficient engines. But these larger engines changed the plane's aerodynamics, making its nose pitch up under certain conditions. Instead of a costly physical redesign, Boeing created a software fix, a hidden system called MCAS. If the plane's nose pitched up too high, MCAS would automatically push it back down. Critically, Boeing downplayed the system's existence. It wasn't mentioned in pilot manuals, and pilots received no training on it. The company lobbied regulators to fast-track its approval to save time and money. Internal emails later revealed the chilling truth. One employee wrote that the plane was designed by clowns, who in turn are supervised by monkeys. Another bragged about Jedi mind tricking regulators into approving the plane with minimal training requirements. On October 29, 2018, that hidden software began to fight the pilots of Lion Air Flight 610. A single faulty sensor fed MCAS bad data, and the system relentlessly forced the plane's nose down again and again. The pilots, unaware of what was happening, fought back, but the software was too powerful. The brand new 737 MAX plunged into the Java Sea, killing all 189 people on board. Boeing publicly suggested it was pilot error. But just 5 months later, on March 10, 2019, the exact same tragedy played out on Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302. Once again, MCAS, triggered by a faulty sensor, overpowered the pilots and sent the plane into an unrecoverable dive, killing all 157 souls aboard. The world was horrified. 2 brand new planes had fallen out of the sky in almost the exact same way. The evidence was undeniable. The entire global fleet of the 737 MAX, the best-selling plane in the world, was grounded for 20 months, an unprecedented event in modern aviation history. The financial fallout was catastrophic. The grounding cost Boeing over $20 billion in fines and compensation. Orders were canceled. Their stock price plummeted. But the true cost was the complete destruction of their once unbreakable reputation. The investigations that followed painted a horrifying picture of a company that had lost its way. Congressional hearings revealed a culture of deception, where employees were pressured to cut corners and safety concerns were ignored. Boeing was charged with criminal conspiracy to defraud the Federal Aviation Administration and was forced to pay a $2.5 billion settlement. But the story doesn't end there. By late 2024 and into 2025, it became terrifyingly clear that the deep-seated problems had not been fixed. The Alaska Airlines door plug blowout was just the beginning. A string of new quality control failures plagued the company. Loose bolts discovered on other 737s, reports of cracked cockpit windows, and manufacturing defects in their 787 Dreamliner. Then came the whistleblowers. Men like John Barnett, a 30-year Boeing veteran, who exposed shoddy production practices and the use of defective parts. Tragically, Barnett was found dead in March of 2024, midway through his deposition against the company. His testimony, and that of others, paints a picture of a company still at war with itself, where a culture of fear silences those who dare to speak up about safety. The story of Boeing is a modern corporate tragedy. It's a story of how a relentless focus on stock price can lead a company to forget its most fundamental purpose. For a bank, that might mean losing money. For a social media company, it might mean losing data. For an airplane manufacturer, the consequences are written in blood. The empire that once prided itself on connecting the world is now struggling to convince us that it can simply hold itself together. The trust that took a century to build was shattered in a few short years, and the biggest question remains: can it ever be rebuilt?